Mermaids, wonderful creatures of myth and legend, perhaps the source of your favorite Disney movie. But mermaids couldn't possibly be real, could they? Well, tonight you're going to hear a tale that just might change your mind. Ever since he'd inherited the pub from that one eccentric aunt, it had been the third rule that had troubled him the most, and now it was to be his undoing. Derek Simpkins couldn't get the smell out of the carpet. It wasn't that it was an unpleasant smell, it was that the carpet of the snug, admittedly well past its prime, now smelt like the North Atlantic. Glancing up, his eyes met the electric blue eyes of the new barmaid. She smiled, he smiled. Marjorie, Derek's wife, glowered at him, almost enough to dry out the carpet. Rule 1 had been never to dip into the till. Rule 2 had been never to let Swede, the most regular of the regulars, have more than 6 pints. Rule 3 was to never disturb the eldritch-looking barrel at the back of the cellar. Rumours had circled the town for centuries that the pub was built on a ley line, the target of a gypsy curse, or trapped between worlds. As for the latter, Derek suspected it was the wallpaper that just gave it that look. The late spring clean had taken a startling turn when, after closing, Marjorie had insisted he get rid of the barrel. It had split. In moments the cellar and the main bar were under water, flush with invertebrates rather than the usual inebriates, and in the midst of a pocket maelstrom, violent and sprung from the barrel, too small to contain it. This was accompanied by an eerie gale that sang around the optics and up out of the chimney. When the impossible torrent receded, there was not 2 people in the bar, but 3. She was naked and half fish. Derek searched around the floor as though the water and the wind might have been enough to knock someone's clothes clean off. Deciding this was silly, he looked back at the girl, and then searched the floor again. Marjorie thrust out a bar towel, and after some encouragement, the girl took it. After she'd cracked the whole legs thing, it was clear she was destined to be a barmaid. Profits were up from all the young men she'd lured in to the cellar. Trouble is, most of them never saw the light of day. Tonight was karaoke night. It had been her idea. They were going to need a bigger cellar at the Mermaid Inn. Josh was at his wits' end. He'd seen the social media messages Tanya had received. It wasn't right. She was his girl. A sacrifice was needed to summon Belial, a trickster and fallen angel, created after Lucifer and known as the King of Evil. Tanya deserved no less. Josh needed somewhere isolated to perform the ritual. Crossroads would be best. But Josh had read no more than how to summon this particular demon to do his bidding. When Tanya's instant message pinged and she'd made excuses to go out for the evening to visit her sister, Josh knew his time had come. Tanya left all smiles. Josh had smiled back. "See you later, lover," he'd said as she'd left. He waited an hour before grabbing Charlie, her cat. "You're coming with me, you little shit," he mumbled. Deep in the woods, opposite their apartment, existed a crossroads. Josh was sure that at 9:17 p.m. he'd not be disturbed. He pulled the notes he'd made from his pocket and started the rite. "Belial, Prince of Darkness, King of Evil, hear me. 68th of the 72 Spirits of Solomon, I pledge this sacrifice to you." Josh lifted the hissing cat from his tote bag in one hand and drew a kitchen knife across its neck with the other. Blood spewed from the wound. Charlie's struggles diminished as his life splattered onto the ground. "Belial, I beseech thee to right this wrong. See my commitment to thee." From deep in the woods Josh saw flames. Then came the jade-skinned dragons, a chariot behind them with a black-winged angel holding the reins. "You summoned me. What is it that you want?" Belial boomed. "I want Tanya to pay for the wrong she has done," Josh replied. "That is done," Belial said. Tanya slipped down the stairs at the club she was at, her spine broken by the fall. "That's it?" "No," Belial smiled. "Now what about Michelle?" Josh froze. How did you know?" Belial grinned. Josh heard cracking sounds first, then pain convulsed his stomach. Before he passed out, he saw jagged, gore-covered bone penetrating each trouser leg. After a failed marriage, impulse turned me into who I thought I'd never become, sitting around a poker table in the local casino. Opposite was Grace, a 30-something woman with scars on her arms and a stolid, unreadable expression. But nice enough. I'd had dinner with her earlier. Steak fixed me up for the night. To my right was the Chinaman, lathered in jewellery and a pinstripe suit. He ordered his 5th double whiskey as the anticipation of the final hand unfolded. The gamble now was that I had been paid by certain members to throw the game in favour of this smarmy, unpopular man. A small crowd gathered as the flop went down. King of clubs, 7 of diamonds, and a life-saving ace of clubs, which gave me a pair. Grace, with unblinking eyes, raised an eyebrow. And then £60 worth of chips, which was the big blind minimum bet. The Chinaman called with a sickening confidence. I called with a squint. My ears itched now, a familiar sign of nerves as I stared at my depleted chips. The turn was laid, 7 of clubs promising. Grace raised again. What was she playing at? She didn't blink. Both the Chinaman and I called her bet, but then the river was set down by the dealer, Jack of clubs. Grace blinked twice, my signal to back off. She put another 60 down. Unsurprisingly, the Chinaman called. I wanted to gamble, not be slung a backhander and let them dictate to me. His entourage of suited men leered at me over his shoulder. Mentally, I took a deep breath and pushed my chips over the line. The Chinaman eyed me intensely as we showed our cards. Grace revealed 3 of a kind. The Chinaman smiled at his ace-high flush, but I couldn't gain control with my full house. At least my return home was now less flooded with peril. However, my look changed as Grace pulled out a serrated knife and impaled the Chinaman's hand to the table as he reached for his winnings. That was my steak knife, I thought. Well, that brings us to the end of tonight's episode. Now run away, children. Run away back to your beds and get some sleep, if you can. I'll see you next time in the library, if you dare.